Hi there, this is my review of the Taitexma TH 860 extended bed. I treated myself to a new machine, but I did find that there was a lot of information not available online and rather hit or miss. So this is my no frills review. So hopefully some of you will find the information useful. Hopefully it doesn't put you off, because overall I am very pleased with my machine. So the first thing I came across with the extended bed is not knowing how far the brackets were. So the brackets that hold the actual main bed up, there's 3 of them. So the brackets are by measurement. They are 79 centimeters or 31 inches from the outside edge to the outside edge, and approximately 40 centimeters or 16 inches from the outside edge to the center bracket. Now, one thing that I have found is the gate pegs are actually quite sharp. So when you're actually doing anything on the machine, the older machines tended to slip. These are actually quite spiky, and I am a leaner, which means I actually lean on them and do get quite a lot of perforations in my arm, as you can see. Well, maybe you can see I've got a few there already from the machine that I've been using. The edge of the needle bed, so where this part comes up, this edge here is also quite sharp. It's not like cut your finger sharp, but it does feel sharper than the older needle beds. Now, I'm not sure if running the carriage over about 1,000,000 times has made the old ones not so sharp, but I'm well on my way working to getting 1,000,000 times across and making it not quite as sharp as what it was. Now, the new needles, the needles that came in the machine, I found them to be feeling a little flimsier than the old needles. I have managed to break a few needles, but when I have put in the new needles that I have had, that I bought for my 881 brother, they have worked perfectly fine. They feel a little bit stronger, but hey, you know, the new needles do work well until, well, they happen to break. I've only broken a few, but I have broken a couple. Now, the new tools, they are made of a lighter plastic. Now, I know plastic has changed in its formulas and everything, and they do feel a lot lighter than the old ones, and they feel like they'll be quite flimsy. I have been working these things to death during the practice. I have been using them and abusing them, but they have stood up well. They are as tough as the old ones. They just feel a lot lighter. They are as flexible or not flexible as the older tools were, and there is no problem with that. Now, there has been talk that these machines feel very light compared to the old machines. It feels light to a pass-up. If anybody has used a pass-up, you know you need about 3 people to lift them. These are comparative to the old brother machines. And I don't think that they are made of light or hopeless weight metals. They are actually good metal. The row counter. Now, what I have found is that my row counter is actually, it's okay to turn here. I can turn it to and fro, etc., etc. But when I actually get it on the machine, I can't turn it. It gets really, and that's just happened right there, it gets really tight to turn it backwards when you have to center it back to 0, and you can't wind it around. It really gets quite jammed. So the manufacturer is currently in the process of sorting this out, but in the meantime I'm using my brother bulky one, which has the same connection on the bottom, and I just slip it on and use it no problem. The fine knit bar, I'm not sure if you can see this, if the profile, it is slightly different, the old to the new. The new one has a sharper edge around it, and it makes it a bit of an oomph for the needles to go up and over. However, it does do its job. I have found that I do need to have the fine needle bar in for anything that is 3-ply and under. But on the old machine, I used to have it in the whole time, no matter what I was knitting. Now, one thing I did find a bit odd, and maybe a pain in the butt, is that the needle bar comes in 2 lengths. Not one length that does the whole 200 170 needles, but it only goes to 105 to 105. So it only does 3/4 of the bed. So if you wanted to cross the whole bed, you would have to cut it, one of these down, and then have a gap or a join somewhere, hopefully between the needles, so that it doesn't have any problems when it's actually doing the knitting. Now this one isn't going to be so easy to show you, but hopefully I can. The needle tape, it's perfectly fine as you're coming along. The numbers are a little bit skewed off. They're not quite central to the actual needle, but it does basically fall in between each of the 8 and the 0, the 7 and the 0, or the 8 and the 5. It does fall between the numbers like it always has done. However, when you get to the 100 section, it falls between the last 2 numbers. I would have thought it would have gone between the 3, but it's actually the last 2 numbers. So it's between, where it's 105, it's between the 0 and the 5, and where it's 110, it's between the 1 and the 0. However, the marker for the punch card is perfect. It's absolutely perfect the whole way along. There is no problem with that. It's just the numbers are a little bit skewy. Now, I really hope that this does show up on the machine, but on the old Brother 881, there was a central rivet, and you knew exactly where your 0 was. Not so with this machine. Here are my 2 central rivets, and yes, I do draw all over my needle beds. Here are my 2 central rivets, and my center is here. So I have 6 stitches from this side and 4 stitches from this side to get to my center zeros. And I know this is correct because I have counted it all the way from the very outside edge all the way in to make sure I know exactly where my center is. So my needle tape is perfect in place. However, my centers are here. Now this I have found to be a bit of a pain in the butt. However, again, it is not a biggie. Sometimes transferring this across is not as easy as that. And I have to give it a bit of a jiggle, and sometimes it's a bit like that, and then it's off and sliding again. Yes, you can use this to cancel some things, like all your other buttons and everything like that, and that works perfectly okay. But this one here to do your hold and not hold positioning for your needles, it can be a bit of a bummer when it doesn't want to move. And it's only a split second, so really I am being a bit picky about it, but if you just give it a bit of a jiggle, it does slide through. Okay, so this is a problem that I've not been able to rectify with the main bed cast on comb. Now I'll only show you one end, but I have this leaning on the rubber bracket at the other end, and as you can see, it doesn't fit between. So the only way that you can actually use this to cast on and knit straight down, you have to not have your rubber on, because the cast on comb does not fit between the rubber brackets. However, if you can knit with it sticking out in a funny position before you can squiggle it in behind, then it is okay to do. Otherwise, you just cannot knit the whole full length with one of these combs. Now this may sound like a bit of nitpicking, but I do not intend it to be that. But on the 881, when you go into working position, there is a real hard ugh, and it falls into like a groove or a notch or something like that, and you know you're definitely in place. Now this particular machine, and it may be the same with the original 860, is a soft sort of stop into it. So you just need to get used to that. But hey, that is definitely not a biggie. Okay, we're now on to the rubber bed. Now the rubber bed brackets, it's quite handy to know that they are 1.3 or 51 inches apart. Now the standard table is 1.2 meters or 47.25 inches long. So your brackets are longer than the standard table, so you will need to get a longer table to be able to fit your rubber, your extended rubber, onto your extended machine. If you're just getting the standard one, of course, all the measurements will be the same, etc., etc. But this was something that I desperately tried to find out online, and guess what? None of that was available, which I was getting a little cross about, but I've got the ink details now. I already had a table that I could use, so it's all tickety-boo. Now, what I did find is that the machine bolted together straight away. It went straight in the brackets, it did everything it was supposed to do, and it works straight out of the box. The rubber didn't require any fiddling about to set it all up like the old ones do, because they always go out of whack. But it all slipped straight in, and it was great. Now, one thing I did find, the 200 stitch rubber comb. You guys will be aware of these things. They have a central hole. I mark mine because I like to know where the centers are on my machine. However, the new ones don't have a center hole. I have marked my centers. I've marked where the center, because of that bracket. It is blinking hard to try and get that center weight in. So one thing you've got to get used to is having even weights. So I'm used to using 3 weights, so I've got to get used to either using 2. So what you need is this little doodaddy, so you can hang it on the center part of your machine, and you can hang your weight from there. Okay, a bit like the main bed, the pitch lever. Now sometimes it is a bit hard to slide between. Now normally it's all good. That first one was a bit of a bind, and normally it's all good to slide it, but sometimes you either have to put a little bit more effort in, or just give it a bit of a jiggle and then slide it. So like the main bed carriage, it's a bit of a blow, but it does work, and you just give it a jiggle and off you go. Okay, the one thing that now I was a bit cross about when I got the machine is the actual rubber bed was bowed. I did go back to the manufacturer. It worked perfectly okay when I was actually knitting, but I went back to the manufacturer and I said, hey, when I put my snips down, I know this isn't the best way to show, but I'm trying to show it online. When I put my snips down, they go down yay far on the outside, and in the middle they just about lose the whole lot, because there was 4 mils difference between the outside edge and the center. And they came back and said, you can either use it as is, because the machine will pull it on, and it did work perfectly okay. My knitting was nice and even, there wasn't a problem with that, but I was just a bit miffed that, you know, there was quite a gap difference between the center and the outside. And the other thing they said you could do is just put your hand in the center and give it a bit of a lean. Now the old machines, you will have heard stories about people literally jumping up and down on them. To be quite honest, I was terrified of doing this move, but I did put my big girl pants on and I gave it a bit of a shove, and guess what? It's absolutely perfect. I have exactly the same distance all the way along. We're 5 mil gap between the 2 beds the whole way along, and it still knits perfectly okay. So I was pleased that I did do that. It's only mentally, it wasn't physically, it was working okay as it was. Now, one thing I did forget to mention when we were talking about the rubber, and oh my goodness, this is so super exciting, but when you actually lift the rubber brackets up just one click, it actually extends it out a little bit. So if you're knitting 5 ply, something a bit extra fluffy, 8 ply or whatever, and you want to have a little bit of a gap, it gives you a little bit of a gap to go through. Oh my goodness, so super cool. Because if you're doing something that you want to do some stuffing, you can pop it down to do the stuffing. It pulls the needles out a little bit, but not too much to worry about. And to disengage, you just click it straight back up. And it goes up to the tight position. And then you can just carry on knitting from there. Okay, so the last thing left to review is the instruction manuals. So the main bed instruction manual comes out, and it is lovely and clear. It's only written in English, but the pictures are just as clear as the old books, or sometimes better, and all the details are correct that are in there, which is all good and no problem. The ribber instruction book does leave a lot to be desired. So it's written, I assume Chinese, I'm not sure which language first, and then it is written in English second. That's just being nitpicking. The pictures are reasonably clear. They are not as clear as the main bed one. However, being picky, the picture of the carriage here does not depict the one that you actually receive, because there is lily buttons on the one that we receive. But where it is important, the lily buttons are pictured. So in the back of the manual, the pictures are much clearer. The instructions are fantastic the whole way through, don't get me wrong. The pictures are much clearer, and you have your lily buttons there, and they're telling you what you need to do to use them or not use them, whichever position they need to be in. So other than that, the manual is great. Okay, so my final verdict for the Taitexma machine is fantastic machine to use. I do really enjoy using it. A couple of frustrations, as you've seen, but I highly recommend if you want a good machine. I do think that I'll have many years of happy knitting. Take care, everybody, and hopefully that was useful for you.